We have some breaking news. Andrew Puzder, who was President Trump's nominee for Labor Secretary, has withdrawn himself from consideration for that post. This is according to the Associated Press. We had heard reports earlier on that this would be forthcoming. His confirmation hearing was scheduled for Thursday. It will likely be canceled now following this withdrawal, according to the Associated Press. And of course, Joe, there have been a lot of questions here about his background. There's some controversy over his personal life, his private sector background. Specifically, he employed an undocumented housekeeper. He also had an ugly divorce. There were allegations of domestic abuse. There's also questions by some conservative Republicans over his pro-immigration stance.
Right. This was the interesting thing today. The National Review, the influential conservative magazine, coming out just today saying Puzder had to go, specifically citing the fact that he was fairly liberal on immigration, sort of the classic Wall Street view of immigration, open borders, their argument that that was inconsistent, bad for low-end labor, and not consistent with the values of the administration. In fact, from day one, some of the more right-wing elements of the conservative base had attacked this nomination for the
And CNN was reporting earlier today that at least 4 and as many as 12 Republican senators had planned to vote against his confirmation. So this is, again, a withdrawal before that confirmation hearing would take place. And it's interesting because as head of the fast food conglomerate CKE, it includes Carl's Jr. and Hardee's, it would make sense that he's pro-immigration, right? Because that would make up a lot of his employee base.
You know, we talked to Dunkin' Donuts CEO Nigel Travis, I think it was last week, pointing out the labor shortages that they have and the reason why immigration restrictions concern them. So it would make sense that another fast food CEO would have a similar perspective on immigration.
All right, let's bring in Craig Giammona, who is Bloomberg News' restaurants reporter, to get some more context here on the withdrawal of Andrew Puzder as a Labor Secretary nominee. Craig, tell us a little bit more about Puzder. Is he friendly with Donald Trump? I know that they see eye to eye on a lot of things. They're similarly brash, but were they friendly?
Well, so Andy Puzder, he's been prominent in Republican circles for a long time, but actually during the election cycle, he gave money to some of the other candidates, to Cruz and Rubio and Jeb. It wasn't really until Trump locked down the nomination, that was back in May, when, he and his wife gave a big donation to the RNC and to Trump, and he became an advisor to Trump. So, he sort of backed some other horses in the race, but once it was clear that Trump was going to get the nomination, then he got on board. And, back then, it was still a time when I think a lot of mainstream people were not supporting Trump, even on the Republican side of things.
Craig, from an ideological perspective, it was always sort of an odd fit because of Puzder's sort of more liberal stance on immigration versus the official stance of this administration. From the perspective of the restaurant industry, which you cover, how big of a deal are some of these restrictions that may be coming down from this office, from the Trump administration?
A fairly big deal, I would say. I mean, the restaurant industry is concerned about that. There's no question. The labor market's very tight right now, and one of the things that's really hurt restaurants is that labor and healthcare costs have continued to go up while food at home has gotten cheaper. So restaurant prices are going up. That burger at McDonald's is maybe just as expensive or more expensive as it has been, whereas now people are seeing cheaper food at the grocery store. So, labor is a big deal, but I think in general the restaurant industry was excited about this. This was somebody that knows the industry, knows the issues. The people that we talk to in the restaurant industry, I think, we're pretty excited about the prospect of having one of their own in that job.
And Craig, Andrew Puzder, as CEO of CKE Restaurants, owned a substantial stake in the company. There are some issues as well about him divesting his investments, weren't there?
Yeah, that's right. That's why the hearing was delayed a couple times. And, now some people saying that those delays are maybe part of the reason why this isn't going to happen for him. Maybe if he had done this earlier when there were other high-profile nominees going through the process, maybe he gets in there. But it was issues with how he was going to divest that stake worth more than $50 million that sort of delayed it. He never filed the paperwork or filed the paperwork to say how he was going to do that, and that's how he got to this point.